Captain Elias Kane sat alone in the dimly lit cabin of his shuttle, staring at the form he had filled out only moments ago. The resignation papers were ready, sealed, and waiting to be submitted to Galactic Command. For the first time in a decade, he imagined what life could be like outside the endless bureaucracy, the distant battles, and the cold metal corridors of military ships. He could picture a quiet colony somewhere on the edge of the galaxy, a small cabin overlooking rolling fields under a golden sun, and no one asking him to plan an attack or command troops ever again. He could finally breathe. For years, Elias had been a hero, at least by the standards of Galactic Command. He had led human battalions in countless wars, fought in alien conflicts that no human had ever expected to win, and survived when few others would have. His strategies were unconventional, often based on instinct rather than procedure, and they worked. Commanders from multiple species had praised him, enemies had grudgingly respected him, and young soldiers had idolized him. But the weight of responsibility had grown unbearable. He had spent his youth in battle and his adulthood in endless missions, and he had nothing to show for it besides scars and the respect of beings who would never know him personally. He was tired, truly tired, and he wanted nothing more than freedom. Elias' shuttle drifted quietly in orbit around the neutral planet of Cirrus. From his window, he could see the sprawling space station below, a hub of commerce and diplomacy. The station was buzzing with life even at this late hour. Lights blinked across its surface, shuttles came and went, and distant engines hummed in the vacuum. It all seemed so small to him, almost insignificant, yet he knew the political and military consequences of leaving the station could ripple across several systems. That knowledge, however, did nothing to deter him. He had earned the right to leave. He leaned back in his chair and let out a long sigh. "This is it," he muttered to himself. No more orders, no more battles, no more galactic politics. His voice echoed slightly in the small cabin. He reached for his datapad to finalize the submission, his fingers trembling with a mix of excitement and nervousness. He could almost taste freedom. But then, a sudden alert blinked on his console. A red icon flashed insistently, accompanied by a sharp tone that made him jerk upright. The words on the screen made his stomach tighten. Emergency Diplomatic Override Priority 1, Princess Elira, Zyphorian Empire. And according to galactic rumor, she had a strange habit of compelling those she deemed useful to her cause into service, sometimes through politics, sometimes through far stranger means. He shook his head. This can't be happening, not now. He glanced at the console. The override had locked his shuttle's exit path. Every system was now remotely controlled by Zyphorian authority. There was no way to submit his resignation. His escape route had been cut off. Minutes later, the cabin door hissed open and two armored figures entered. Their armor gleamed under the soft cabin lights, and their eyes or visors locked onto him with absolute precision. "Captain Elias Kane," one said, his voice amplified and commanding. "By order of Princess Elira of Zyphoria, you are required to report immediately to the Imperial Palace. Resistance is not advised. But this changes nothing. I will not serve." Everyone on the station seemed aware of Elira's presence. She commanded fear, respect, and curiosity all at once. Elias had only heard stories of her intelligence and charisma, but he was about to meet her personally, and he could feel, deep down, that this encounter would not be ordinary. The shuttle ride to Zyphoria's orbit was swift. Elias gazed out at the planet below, a swirling mass of turquoise oceans, green continents, and cloud patterns unlike anything he had seen in human space. The technology embedded in the planet's orbit was beyond anything humanity had built, a network of defense satellites and observation platforms, all working seamlessly together. Elias had fought many enemies in his life, but he had never seen such efficiency and elegance combined with power. The shuttle docked with the palace station, and Elias was escorted through vast corridors that shimmered with alien materials, pulsing softly as if alive. The walls were lined with intricate displays of Zyphoria's history and victories, holographic images dancing and shifting with a life of their own. Finally, he arrived at the central chamber. Princess Elira stood waiting. She was taller than most humans expected, her posture regal yet relaxed. Her eyes, an iridescent shade of violet, studied him with a mixture of amusement and calculation. She wore a uniform that blended military and ceremonial design, adorned with symbols that seemed almost organic in their flow. "Captain Kane," she said, her voice melodic but firm, carrying across the chamber without the need for amplification. "I understand you intend to leave military service. I seek only peace and a quiet life. I resigned from the Galactic Army, and I intend to stay out of galactic politics entirely. Your military record, your strategies, your human instincts, they are all highly valued. You will serve." The concept seemed absurd, almost comical, until he realized that it was real and now it applied to him. I cannot," he began, but the words felt hollow. The room shimmered with a subtle energy, a containment field that prevented sudden movement. Resistance was not just futile, it was impossible. Elira stepped closer. "Captain, I am not cruel, but I am practical. The galaxy does not wait for the wishes of one individual. You have two choices: resist and face containment, or comply and retain some control over your role. Even humans like you can understand the value of strategy, do you not?" Yet here he was, caught not by weapons, but by law, authority, and sheer force of presence. He realized that for the first time he was truly powerless in the face of someone who wielded power with confidence and precision. "Fine," he said finally. "I will comply for now, but this changes nothing about my desire to leave when possible. Your skills will be tested soon. You will lead not as a servant, but as a partner in ensuring Xiphoria's survival. And perhaps, in time, you will understand why some bonds are not easily broken." It was as if she had already calculated the next several moves of his life and found him wanting, or perhaps ready. The corridors of the palace stretched endlessly before him, yet every step he took felt heavier than any battlefield he had crossed. He had escaped countless wars, survived ambushes, and led troops into chaos. Yet now the universe had cornered him in a way no human strategy could escape. And somewhere deep inside, he felt the tiniest flicker of curiosity. What did this alien princess want with him? And what did she see in humanity that no one else did? The shuttle ride back to the barracks within the palace was silent. Elias stared at the stars streaking past the observation window, thinking of the quiet life he had dreamed of just hours ago. That life seemed farther away than ever. And yet, against his own judgment, a small part of him wondered, if he was being forced into this strange, impossible position, could there be something worth discovering on the other side? The first taste of Xiphorian law, of royal authority, and of a power far greater than any human army, had settled over him like a shadow. Elias Kane had tried to quit the Galactic Army, but the galaxy, it seemed, had other plans. And somewhere among the swirling clouds and brilliant cities of Xiphoria, Princess Elira waited to see how he would respond to the challenge of a lifetime. For the first time, Elias realized that quitting was not an option. Not yet. And perhaps he thought quietly, as he closed his eyes for the first time in hours, that might be exactly the point. Elias Kane stepped off the palace shuttle and onto the sleek, polished surface of Xiphoria's orbital palace. The platform stretched endlessly, supported by enormous anti-gravity pylons that seemed to float above the planet's turquoise oceans. He had walked across countless military bases, boarded countless starships, but this place felt unlike anything he had ever experienced. The air, though artificial, hummed with quiet energy, almost alive. Lights pulsed beneath the translucent flooring, revealing streams of data and energy flowing like veins throughout the structure. Every step reminded him that he was no longer a free man in any sense he had known. Elira's personal escort waited at the top of a grand ramp. Their armor gleamed with a faint metallic sheen that shifted colors under the soft lights. Unlike the rigid soldiers of Galactic Command, they moved with a fluidity that was almost alien, each step precise and purposeful. Elias noticed the symbols etched into their armor. They weren't just decorative, they seemed to communicate rank, role, and loyalty all at once. "You will follow protocol," one of the guards said, voice calm yet firm. "The princess expects you in the council hall immediately." The walls were alive with holographic projections, historical battles of Xiphoria, portraits of leaders who had shaped the empire, and displays of advanced technology he had never seen in human space. One projection caught his eye, a massive map showing Xiphoria's planetary system with a network of defenses and resources that made even the Galactic Command stations look primitive. "This empire is vast," Elias whispered to himself, "and I am just one human among millions of plans." She had changed her attire, now wearing ceremonial robes with intricate patterns of shimmering light, each thread seemingly alive. Her violet eyes studied him carefully as he approached. "Captain Kane," she said, her voice carrying authority and calm amusement, welcome to Xiphoria. You are, I trust, beginning to understand that resistance is often more complicated than it seems. I have resigned from all galactic duties. I have need of someone who can think differently, who can see patterns others cannot. Humanity has been underestimated in these systems for centuries, and yet humans like you have always found ways to survive and overcome. That is why you are here. Not a person with free will. The law is clear, and your skills make you too valuable to ignore. She did not simply demand obedience, she evaluated, measured, and considered outcomes. You are asking me to stay, Elias said finally. To join you in what capacity? I am not a Xiphorian. I do not know your people, your politics, your methods. Rebels claim to oppose my rule, but they are being manipulated by outside forces. I need someone to lead the defense, to coordinate strategy and protect the city until stability can be restored. Failure here would result in real bloodshed and perhaps the loss of countless lives, human or alien. I understand, he said slowly. I will lead, but this is not acceptance of your draft. It is a necessity. Elias sat silently, reviewing the limited data he had about the rebels. Reports were sparse, contradictory, and colored by political bias. Unlike the structured intelligence he was used to, much of this information came from citizens' reports, intercepted messages, and environmental sensors embedded in the city. He realized that leading in this environment would require not just military skill, but intuition, negotiation, and adaptability, qualities humans were often underestimated for. When they landed in the capital, Elias was struck by the beauty and scale of the city. Towering structures of shimmering metal and living crystal rose from the ground, connected by networks of bridges, walkways, and energy conduits. Flying vehicles zipped between the towers, carrying citizens and goods. The streets below were lined with beings of every imaginable form, bipedal, quadrupedal, and even floating species, moving with purpose and harmony, at least until chaos erupted. Elias followed his escort through the streets as a commotion began. Crowds of citizens shouted, alarms blared, and holographic projections displayed messages of rebellion. Small groups of rebels had begun occupying key points, power nodes, transportation hubs, and communication centers. The goal was clear: destabilize the city and force Elira to concede to demands she had no intention of meeting. He took a deep breath, feeling the familiar surge of adrenaline that came before battle. Despite his exhaustion, despite the forced nature of his involvement, his mind began to click into the rhythm of command. He observed the rebels' positions, their tactics, and the weaknesses in their approach. Unlike the Xiphorian forces, which followed strict protocols, the rebels were chaotic, improvising in ways predictable to a human mind trained in strategy and unpredictability. Captain Kane, one of Elira's advisors said, approaching him quickly, your units are ready, but the rebels have fortified positions near the central plaza. They control key energy nodes. If you fail, we divide their attention, cut off their supply lines, and reclaim control point by point. Chaos is their strength, but it will be their weakness. His human instincts guided the strategy, flanking maneuvers, unexpected timing, and the use of civilian drones as decoys. Within minutes, the first wave of rebel forces was neutralized, their chaotic approach dismantled by precise, unconventional tactics. Elias felt a flicker of pride. Even in an alien world, among beings whose technology surpassed his own, he could make a difference. Humans were underestimated in these systems not because of weakness, but because of imagination and adaptability, qualities that could turn the tide of any battle. By nightfall, the city was largely stabilized. Rebel groups had been contained or neutralized, and Xiphorian forces had regained control of vital areas. Citizens began cautiously emerging from hiding, relief spreading across the streets. For the first time, Elias saw gratitude, not just obedience, from those he had helped protect. When the immediate crisis ended, Elira approached him. She had walked silently through the streets, observing the battle firsthand. You see, Captain Kane, she said softly, humans are often underestimated, yet they can change outcomes in ways no one predicts. You have done more than fight, you have led. And in doing so, you have proven yourself not just to me, but to Xiphoria itself. I am still a man who wanted freedom. Tomorrow you will face more challenges, and your choices will shape the future of this planet, and perhaps beyond. He realized that being drawn into this world might not be punishment at all, but an opportunity to demonstrate what humans could do when given a chance. As he watched the city lights flicker below him, Elias felt a mixture of exhaustion, relief, and an unfamiliar sense of purpose. For the first time in years, he wondered if perhaps his life had not been meaningless. And for the first time, he considered that the alien princess who had drafted him into service might not be an enemy, but a challenge worth facing. The night settled over Xiforia like a velvet curtain. Above, the stars shone cold and distant, indifferent to the struggles of one planet and one man. Yet for Elias Kane, those stars now felt closer, filled with possibility and with the faint, daring promise that humans could survive and even thrive against the most unexpected odds. And in the shadows of the palace, Princess Elira watched him, smiling faintly to herself. She had drafted him into service, yes, but she had also seen the spark that would make him a partner rather than a prisoner. The game had only just begun. Elias Kane had tried to quit the Galactic army, but Xiforia had other plans. And the galaxy, it seemed, had only just begun to test him. The morning on Xiforia's surface was sharp and bright, sunlight reflecting off the crystalline towers and the turquoise waters of the planet below. Captain Elias Kane awoke in a chamber provided by the palace, the walls pulsing faintly with energy. Despite the comfort, his mind was already occupied. Today would not be a day of rest. Rebels still lingered in the city outskirts, and intelligence reports suggested that outside forces were secretly manipulating them. Elias rose from the bed, feeling a mixture of fatigue and resolve. He had spent decades fighting wars, surviving ambushes, and commanding troops, yet this challenge was unlike any other. Here, he was not just a soldier. He was a tactician navigating unfamiliar politics, alien customs, and laws that could force him into service against his will. And yet, he could not ignore the truth. Humans were underestimated across the galaxy, but their ingenuity and adaptability could turn any situation into an advantage. As he dressed in the light battle armor provided by Elira's advisors, Elias reviewed the limited data he had gathered. The rebels had fortified several key positions: the central energy hub, the transportation control tower, and the main communication array. Each location was defended with automated turrets, drones, and trained fighters, but their strategy was disorganized. Their strength lay in chaos and unpredictability, qualities that humans could anticipate with careful observation. When he stepped out onto the balcony overlooking the city, Elira was already there. She stood silently, her violet eyes scanning the streets below. Her presence was commanding yet calm, and Elias felt the same mixture of unease and admiration he had felt when he first met her. "You will need more than conventional tactics," she said quietly. "They are not just rebels. They are influenced by agents of the Turvian Confederacy. If you fail, they will exploit the chaos to strike at my rule, and this city could fall before the day ends." "We adapt." The energy nodes flickered as automated defenses switched on and off, responding to rebel interference. Every detail mattered, and Elias' eyes darted between them, noting patterns and weaknesses. "Captain Kane," one Xiforian commander said, approaching him, "our forces are ready to engage, but the rebels are strong at the central plaza. We have lost communications in that sector. Once the hub is under control, we can cut off their supply lines and communication, forcing them into retreat. Follow my lead." Every move was calculated, yet flexible. Human intuition, honed over decades of battle, allowed him to predict enemy responses before they even occurred. As they approached the energy hub, Elias noticed a series of traps the rebels had set, traps designed to delay and confuse rather than kill. They relied on alien technology unfamiliar to him, but the principles were simple enough: predict, adapt, and counter. He signaled his team to bypass certain defenses, redirect drones to trigger false alarms, and use the terrain to shield their approach. The hub was secured faster than expected, and with it, the rebels' coordination began to collapse. Elira watched from a nearby tower, communicating through a secure channel. "Impressive," she said. "Your human methods are effective. They are forcing the rebels to fight on multiple fronts. Their chaos is now their weakness." The humans' ability to adapt, to improvise, and to think beyond rigid structures was proving invaluable. He felt a surge of pride, not for personal glory, but for what humans could accomplish when given the chance. But the battle was far from over. Reports came in that the Turvian Confederacy had dispatched a small strike force to support the rebels. Elias realized the stakes had increased dramatically. What began as a local rebellion was now a potential invasion. The humans in his unit, combined with the Xiphorian forces, were the only thing standing between the city and disaster. "Prepare for external forces," Elias ordered. "We cannot rely solely on static defenses. Mobilize troops to intercept and use drones to monitor flanking routes. We need to control the battlefield, not react to it." Citizens watched from safe zones, their fear tempered by awe at the coordinated efforts of humans and Xiphorians fighting together. During the battle, Elias encountered a rebel commander who had been manipulating both the citizens and his own forces. The alien was clever, anticipating human tactics and adjusting accordingly. Yet Elias remained calm. "Adapt again," he muttered. "Every move can be countered if you remain flexible." Using a combination of diversion, calculated risk, and quick improvisation, Elias outmaneuvered the commander, forcing him to retreat. By late afternoon, the city was largely stabilized. Key positions were reclaimed, rebel forces were disorganized, and the external Turvian units had been repelled. The citizens began to emerge cautiously, offering gratitude to those who had defended them. Elias observed the scene, feeling a mixture of exhaustion and satisfaction. He had led an alien army, navigated unfamiliar technology, and applied human ingenuity to achieve victory. Elira approached him again, this time stepping into the midst of the city. She had observed from above, but now she walked among the people, noting the aftermath. "Captain Kane," she said, her voice carrying over the quieted streets, "today you have shown what humans are capable of. Not just strength, but strategy, insight, and the ability to turn chaos into advantage. You have earned the respect of my people, and perhaps even my admiration. Tomorrow will bring new challenges. You will face political trials, alliances, and decisions that may test your morality as much as your skill in battle. But for today, you have proven your worth. And in doing so, you have shown that humans are more than capable, even among the stars." The rebellion had been quelled, but the greater struggle, the political, strategic, and personal challenges, was only beginning. Walking back to the palace, Elias felt the weight of both exhaustion and realization. He had been drafted into service, yes, but he had also been given an opportunity to show the galaxy the power of human thought, courage, and adaptability. The HFY pride he had once carried quietly within himself now burned brightly, visible in the eyes of those he had protected, and the alien princess who had drafted him. As night fell and the city lights shimmered below, Elias paused on a balcony overlooking the streets. He could hear the faint hum of distant engines, the occasional cheer of citizens returning to normal life, and the subtle energy of the city, alive and vibrant. He realized that the path he had resisted so fiercely, the path of service, of duty, and of unforeseen alliances, was shaping him into something he had never imagined. A human capable of standing toe-to-toe with alien empires, not as a pawn, but as a strategist, a protector, and a force to be reckoned with. Somewhere in the shadows, Princess Elira watched him once more, her expression unreadable but satisfied. She had drafted him into service, yes, but she had also witnessed something rare, the spark of human potential, ingenuity, and leadership. She had drawn him into her world, and in doing so had set in motion events that would test the limits of both human and Xiphorian strength, wisdom, and resilience. Elias Kane had tried to quit the Galactic army, but Xiphoria had other plans. And as he looked out at the city he had helped save, he knew that the galaxy would not underestimate humanity again. The day after the battle, the city of Xiphoria was alive in a way that surprised Elias Kane. The streets, once filled with chaos and fear, now shimmered with cautious optimism. Citizens emerged from hiding, repairing damaged structures, and expressing gratitude to the human and Xiphorian forces who had defended them. But there was no time for celebration. Elira had summoned him to the palace once more, and he knew that the true challenges were only beginning. Elias stepped into the grand hall, the same chamber where he had first met the princess. The walls pulsed with soft energy, casting light across the holographic displays of Xiphoria's history and achievements. This time the atmosphere was heavier, filled with anticipation and the weight of law. Elira stood at the center of the room, flanked by advisors, military officers, and legal scholars. Her violet eyes scanned Elias as he entered, and he could feel the intensity of her gaze, assessing him as both warrior and negotiator. "Captain Kane," she said, her voice calm but commanding, "today you will participate in the royal draft proceedings. This is the ancient law that allows the ruler to bind those essential to the survival and stability of Xiforia. You have already demonstrated skill in battle and strategy. Now, it is time to demonstrate your understanding of responsibility and loyalty. He had hoped to avoid it entirely, but the law was unyielding. I will participate, he said firmly, but I will not consent blindly. I am not here to be a pawn. Your choices will determine the nature of the bond. The ceremony began in a chamber larger and more ornate than any he had seen. The floor was a polished surface of translucent material, reflecting the soft glow of overhead energy streams. Symbols of the Empire's law floated in the air, each one representing centuries of tradition. Elira stepped forward, her presence radiating authority and focus. Captain Kane, she said, the royal draft requires a demonstration of loyalty, wisdom, and understanding. You may participate in a traditional manner which would bind you formally to the crown, or in a strategic manner which allows negotiation and adaptation. Your choice will define your role in Xiforia's future. I choose the strategic approach. A holographic map of the city appeared, highlighting multiple zones of unrest and potential threats. He was asked to deploy units, allocate resources, and prioritize actions in a way that minimized civilian casualties while securing key strategic points. Each decision had consequences simulated in real time, forcing him to consider not only military tactics, but also diplomacy, logistics, and morale. Elias studied the map carefully. He noticed patterns in the data that others might have missed. Clusters of unrest were influenced by both internal politics and external forces, and some zones could be stabilized with minimal intervention if handled wisely. He began issuing commands, adjusting allocations as simulations revealed outcomes. His human intuition, honed through years of improvisation and unpredictability in battle, guided his decisions. As the simulation progressed, Elira watched silently, occasionally adjusting variables to introduce new complications. A sudden rebellion in one sector threatened to spread, while an energy grid failure in another could endanger civilians. Elias reacted quickly, reallocating units, deploying drones to repair systems, and negotiating with rebel leaders through communication channels. Each choice had immediate impact, demonstrating the delicate balance between strategy and morality. By the end of the first challenge, the simulation had stabilized. Civilian safety was maintained, key positions were secure, and external threats had been mitigated. Elira's eyes glimmered with approval. Impressive. You have balanced strategy with compassion and adaptability with foresight. But the royal draft tests more than battlefield skill. You must now navigate diplomacy. Missteps could escalate tensions or create new conflicts. He began by listening carefully, analyzing motivations, and identifying shared goals. He noticed that small concessions could build trust without weakening authority, and that a direct, honest approach often achieved more than elaborate deception. Using these insights, he guided discussions, resolved disputes, and brokered temporary alliances. The advisors observing him whispered among themselves, impressed by the human's grasp of diplomacy in an alien context. As the day progressed, Elias faced increasingly complex scenarios, simulated attacks by rival empires, ethical dilemmas involving civilian safety versus military objectives, and resource allocation under extreme scarcity. Each challenge required creative problem-solving, decisive action, and moral consideration. He drew on his experiences in the Galactic Army, adapting lessons learned from human conflicts to alien systems. Through it all, Elira remained a silent observer, her expression inscrutable. Elias could sense her evaluation, not just of his decisions, but of his character. She seemed to be testing his ability to maintain integrity under pressure, to see whether he could act with both intelligence and empathy. Finally, the last challenge was presented, a simulated coup orchestrated by the Turvian Confederacy, designed to destabilize the city and force him into a position of impossible choice. He had to identify the conspirators, prevent civilian casualties, and maintain public trust. Time was limited, information was incomplete, and the situation was chaotic. Elias' mind raced. He applied every lesson from the previous challenges: observation, adaptation, intuition, and human ingenuity. He coordinated units to secure critical areas, used drones to gather intelligence, and negotiated with faction leaders to reveal hidden plots. He anticipated the moves of the conspirators, turning their own strategies against them. Slowly, methodically, he restored order, neutralizing the coup before it could cause lasting damage. When the simulation ended, the chamber was silent. Holographic projections dissolved, leaving only the soft glow of the palace's energy streams. Elira stepped forward, her violet eyes meeting his. "Captain Kane," she said, "you have demonstrated strategy, wisdom, and moral judgment. You have proven that humans can think beyond protocol, adapt beyond expectation, and act with both courage and integrity. You have passed the royal draft tests. It was an opportunity to show what humans could do when given responsibility and trust. You have earned the status of partner," Elira continued. "This does not mean you are bound without choice. It means your role is now one of influence, decision-making, and collaboration. You will work with me to protect Zyphoria, shape its policies, and ensure stability. You retain your autonomy, yet your actions will have greater impact than you have ever imagined." As he walked through the palace corridors later, Elira joined him. "You handled yourself well today," she said. "Few have the courage to face these trials, and fewer still have the skill to succeed. I hope you understand that your presence here is not merely for my benefit, but for the future of this world. And I see that humans can make a difference even in situations we were never meant to face. I came here resisting, but now I see the opportunity in service. You did not simply follow orders, you thought, adapted, and acted. That is what makes humans remarkable." The HFY pride he had carried quietly now burned openly. Ingenuity, courage, and adaptability had triumphed over expectation and protocol. As night fell over Zyphoria, Elias Kane stood on a balcony overlooking the city he had helped stabilize. Lights shimmered across streets and towers, reflecting both the beauty of the planet and the resilience of its people. He realized that he had been given more than a challenge. He had been given a chance to demonstrate humanity's worth in a galaxy that often underestimated it. And somewhere in the palace shadows, Princess Elira watched him, her expression calm yet satisfied. She had drafted him into service, yes, but she had also discovered something rare: the spark of human potential, courage, and leadership. The game had only just begun, and Elias Kane was now not a pawn, but a key player in shaping the future of Zyphoria, and perhaps the galaxy itself. The royal draft had bound him not by law alone, but by respect earned through action, skill, and moral choice. Elias Kane had tried to quit the Galactic army, yet Zyphoria had shown him that true freedom came not from running away, but from standing tall, facing impossible challenges, and proving that humans could thrive where no one expected them to. The days following the royal draft were a whirlwind of strategy meetings, patrols, and diplomatic discussions. Elias Kane had transitioned from a reluctant participant in Zyphoria's affairs to a key advisor and strategist. Citizens looked to him with cautious hope, soldiers followed his unconventional tactics with confidence, and even some of the Empire's most skeptical advisors had begun to acknowledge the value of human ingenuity. Yet Elias knew the true test was still ahead. Reports had arrived that the Turvian Confederacy, the alien empire that had tried to manipulate the rebel factions, was planning a direct strike at Zyphoria. The intelligence suggested a coordinated assault targeting both the planet's surface and its orbital defenses. Elias understood immediately: the next battle would not be a simple skirmish. It would determine the future of the planet and the stability of the Empire itself. Elira summoned him to the command chamber, a space that overlooked the planet below and the stars beyond. Holographic projections displayed fleet movements, rebel strongholds, and Turvian ships entering the system. The energy from the displays reflected in Elira's violet eyes, sharp and calculating. "This is the moment," she said softly. "The Confederacy believes Zyphoria is vulnerable. They have underestimated your human perspective, Captain Kane. You see solutions where others see only risk. We protect the citizens first, the planet second, and the enemy will falter before they can adapt." He divided forces into agile units capable of rapid response, using drones and energy shields to cover civilian zones. He coordinated orbital defenses with surface units, creating layers of protection that allowed flexibility without sacrificing strength. Hours later, the first wave of Turvian ships appeared in orbit. They moved with confidence, assuming that Zyphoria's defenses had been weakened by recent unrest. Elias anticipated this arrogance. "We draw them in," he instructed. "Their overconfidence will be their downfall. Engage lightly at first, then strike where they least expect it." Energy beams streaked across the dark skies, explosions shook orbital platforms, and alarms blared throughout the city. Xiphorian ships engaged Turvian forces in skirmishes designed to test their coordination, while surface units defended key infrastructure. Elias moved through the command chamber, issuing orders, adjusting strategies, and anticipating enemy maneuvers. Unlike many alien forces, humans excelled in unpredictability. Elias used this to full effect. Orbital decoys, unexpected fleet movements, and daring strikes disrupted the Turvians' formation. Civilians were moved swiftly to secure zones, while rebel sympathizers were pacified with a combination of diplomacy and careful control. Every decision was a balance between risk and reward, and Elias had spent a lifetime learning how to make those calculations under pressure. By mid-afternoon, it became clear that the Turvian Confederacy had underestimated both Xiphoria and its new human strategist. Their fleet was forced into defensive positions, their attack fragmented and uncoordinated. Elias took advantage, directing precision strikes at weak points in the enemy formation while protecting vital planetary systems. Each success further demoralized the Turvian forces. On the ground, Elias led a specialized strike team to neutralize a hidden squadron of enemy drones that had infiltrated the city outskirts. Moving with a combination of stealth, technology, and human intuition, his team disabled the drones before they could cause harm. Citizens watched with awe as humans and Xiphorians worked together seamlessly, a living demonstration that cooperation across species could be not only possible but decisive. During a brief pause in the battle, Elira approached him. "Your strategy has saved countless lives today," she said. "The Turvians expected chaos, but what they did not expect was ingenuity. They will not recover quickly. We must consolidate our victory and prepare for what comes next." Even some former rebels, seeing the leadership and fairness of Elias, offered assistance. It was a demonstration of what humanity could accomplish when paired with collaboration, respect, and strategy. By evening, the Turvian forces had begun to retreat. Their ships withdrew from orbit, their influence over the city ended, and the remaining rebel cells surrendered or dispersed. The city of Xiphoria, battered but resilient, had survived. Citizens cheered cautiously, aware that their survival was owed not only to Xiphorian forces, but to the human who had shown them the power of adaptability and leadership. Elias stood on a high balcony overlooking the city, watching the glow of lights reflecting across the streets and towers. For a moment, he allowed himself to breathe. He had wanted freedom, a quiet life, but he now understood that true impact came not from escaping responsibility, but from facing it. Humans were underestimated, yes, but their ability to adapt, think critically, and act decisively had made the difference today. Elira appeared at his side, her presence calm yet commanding. "You have proven yourself beyond any question, Captain Kane," she said. "Not merely as a soldier, but as a strategist, a diplomat, and a leader. Xiphoria owes its survival to you, and perhaps the galaxy will begin to see humanity in a new light. I fought wars I thought were endless, but this has been different. I have seen what humans can achieve, not just in battle, but in cooperation, ingenuity, and leadership. You acted not because you were compelled, but because you understood the value of your actions. That is what makes humans remarkable." But the galaxy had given him something more valuable, an opportunity to demonstrate what humanity could achieve when given responsibility, respect, and trust. In the following days, Elias worked closely with Elira to stabilize the planet further. He advised on policies to prevent future rebellions, helped restructure the Xiphorian defense forces, and oversaw humanitarian efforts to rebuild areas damaged by conflict. His human perspective brought new solutions to old problems, earning admiration not only from Xiphorians, but from diplomats and advisors across the region. The citizens began to see him as a protector and a bridge between worlds. He had earned respect not through fear or obedience, but through action, integrity, and ingenuity. Young humans visiting Xiphoria for training programs looked up to him as a model of what their species could accomplish, and he realized that his impact would echo long after the immediate threats had passed. One evening, as the two stood on the balcony overlooking the city, Elira spoke quietly. "You could return to your quiet life now," she said. "You have earned it. The royal draft allowed you to stay, but you have proven that your presence is essential. The choice is yours." But now he saw that freedom was not merely the absence of responsibility. It was the power to shape outcomes, to protect lives, and to demonstrate the potential of humanity. He had been drafted into service, yes, but he had turned that draft into an opportunity. "I choose to stay," he said finally. "Not because I am forced, but because I can make a difference, because humans can make a difference. And because this world, this galaxy, needs that." He had tried to quit the Galactic army, to escape the endless cycle of orders and battle. Yet in being drawn into this alien empire, he had discovered something far greater: the chance to demonstrate humanity's ingenuity, courage, and adaptability on a scale he had never imagined. Over the following weeks, Elias and Elira worked tirelessly. They reformed the Xiphorian military with new strategies that combined human unpredictability with alien precision. Diplomatic channels were strengthened, trade and alliance agreements were secured, and the citizens were guided toward rebuilding and innovation. Every success was a testament to human potential, the ability to think beyond protocol, to adapt to unforeseen circumstances, and to act with both wisdom and compassion. Soon, whispers spread across neighboring star systems. Humans had played a decisive role in the defense and stabilization of Xiphoria, demonstrating ingenuity, strategy, and leadership previously unseen by alien civilizations. Where humanity had once been underestimated, respect now grew. The galaxy began to take notice. One quiet night, Elias stood on the balcony of the palace once more. The city below shimmered in the soft light of energy and civilization. He thought of the battles fought, the challenges overcome, and the decisions made under pressure. He realized that trying to quit had been futile, not because he was denied freedom, but because the galaxy had given him something far greater: the opportunity to prove what humans were capable of. Elira joined him silently, her presence comforting. "The galaxy will remember this," she said softly. "And they will remember you, Captain Kane. Not as a soldier bound by law, but as a human who shaped history. That is what makes us human." And in doing so, he had shown the universe that humanity was clever, resilient, and capable of achieving the extraordinary. Xiphoria was safe, the rebels defeated, the Confederacy repelled, and the future of the Empire secure. Yet for Elias, the true victory was proving that humans could rise above expectation, adapt where others failed, and shape the destiny of worlds. He had been drafted into service, yes, but he had turned that draft into triumph, leaving a legacy that would inspire both humans and aliens for generations. And somewhere in the quiet glow of the palace, Princess Elira smiled. She had drafted him into service, but it was he who had changed the fate of her world, and perhaps the galaxy itself. Captain Elias Kane had tried to quit the Galactic army, but the galaxy had other plans, and humanity had just begun to prove its worth.